Potters, which one is the third now? I beg your pardon. The third was SWOT. Okay, second SWOT. The third, okay, Potter's 5 forces. Then we looked at Potter's value chain. Okay, so today we're looking at Potter's generic strategy. So we spoke to PESTEL, SWOT, 5 forces, and also value chain in the last class. And they are fantastic models. Some have been tested before, some have not been tested. So it's good we pay attention to them so that we'll be able to grasp their concept in case they show up. For 2 diets now, I mentioned in the last class, the examiner hasn't tested the strategic and performance management models, mostly in requirement 2. So let's see how to concentrate and pay attention to most of them in case they come out in the November 2025 diet. All right, so by way of purpose, speaking to the purpose of Potter's generic model or generic strategies. The purpose is to identify how a company can achieve a competitive advantage. Competitive advantage is an internal strength for a company, and Potter's generic strategy could help a company facilitate that. So the purpose is to help a company in an industry where there are a lot of competitors to see through 3 main strategy approaches by this model to help them gain a competitive advantage, an edge, carve a niche for their business or their product or service. So the strategies look at principally the cost leadership. Cost leadership. Leadership in cost means becoming the lowest cost producer in that industry. So cost is one of the challenging areas businesses have issues, especially where they deal with imported raw materials and they have no control over. Cutting costs and lowering costs in that industry will be a primary aim and objective of that company in that industry. So the features of cost leadership includes economies of scale, cost-efficient operations, tight control over cost and overheads so that they don't go out of hand and affect the bottom line. So the target is to ensure price-sensitive customers that don't play with the price. Any hike in price can scare away such customers to substitute. So the essence and the aim of reducing cost is to ensure that the margin of the product don't go above bar and scare away loyal customers. So that's key. So one of the key areas of the Potter's generic model is cost leadership. The second area is differentiation. The second area of this model is differentiation, and it aims to offer unique products and services that provide value beyond price. So what is value? Solving unique problems. Value is about solving problems, bringing solution to challenges. So differentiation, talking about a company's product or services, can be very unique to the point that customers don't look at the price. They just go for the experience the product or service offer. The experience. The features of differentiation speaks to high quality or innovative product. Strong brand reputation of that product. Excellent customer service of the company. And the target is for customers willing to pay a premium for the uniqueness and the experience that product brings. So the issue of differentiation is about giving a superior experience to the customers than any other product in that industry. Very key. And the aim is to target a specific market segment or niche. A specific market segment, not maybe a general population, but a specific segment that have class that need those specific kinds of product. And it can be cost focused or differentiation focused. So a deep understanding of the target segment's need is very important for the company. And the target is to look at specific groups of customers, a geographical area or a demography, talking about maybe the young, the youths, the elderly in that jurisdiction, to be able to provide such product or service to that resonate with them. So in applying these two powerful generic strategies, you can apply them in developing competitive position. This strategy is based on competitive position by the company understanding the competitive dynamics of that industry and also aligning their resources and capabilities with strategic goals to achieve those objectives. So this model can be applied graphically, strategically to meet these goals and objectives. So very importantly, the Porter's generic model speaks to these three areas. These three areas we spoke about: cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. Cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. So when you hear Porter's generic strategies, the first thing you should think of is cost. Number two, leadership. Cost leadership. Number two, differentiation. And number three, focus. Cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. Very, very important in brief. So let's look at maybe an example. Let me share some thoughts on some examples that could resonate with you. Like we said, there are three broad strategies firms use to gain that competitive advantage in the market, speaking to cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. A practical example could be seen in the area of a company. Talking about cost leadership now, a company aims to be the lowest cost producer in its industry. So, for example, Dangote Cement produces cement at a large scale, leveraging economies of scale to offer lower prices than competitors. So you see that the cost leadership in Dangote Cement, there are other players in that space, but Dangote Cement coming to lower their prices than other competitors would create that lower cost producer in that industry, especially as a premium brand and a well-known brand like Dangote. So in that cement space or that cement sector, he could lower the prices than competitors to lead cost-wise. So look at that example graphically and it will resonate. Then for the differentiation, speaking to a company offering unique products or services that customer perceive as superior. So for example, Guinness Nigeria, we could use Guinness Nigeria, that differentiates its Malta Guinness, for example, through strong branding and premium quality. So Malta Guinness is there competing with the likes of Maltina, Grand Malt, High Malt, and Co. So that differentiation in the brand, no matter the price, could give Guinness Nigeria that strong premium quality. And a lot of consumers will prefer going for Malta Guinness than any other product in that malt space. Then the focus, either cost focus or differentiation focus, talking about the company targeting a niche market with either lower costs or specialized offerings. Take, for example, Chivita, the 100% fruit juice, focuses on health-conscious consumers, offering premium fruit juice at higher prices than mainstream juice brands. So that focus on health-conscious customers is that focus area a company could carve its niche, target a demography or a population, a geographical area that need that kind of product. It could be no sugar juice and carve a niche there to be able to add value to that population. So these three examples on differentiation, cost leadership, differentiation, and focus could help you understand this Porter's generic model very practically and seamlessly. So that's briefly Porter's generic model and what it applies and how it applies to companies, products, and services. All right. Any question? Any question on that model? Please feel free. If you have any thoughts, feel free to interject.
John?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to get clarity on this.
Yeah, please.
This looking more like the way I'm looking at it, it's more like two uh, parts. That's costs and differentiation.
Mm.
Because the focus is now in alignment with cost and differentiation itself. So it's making it look like, does it mean focus is not really, is more like a sub of the two, or what?
Good question. Good question. So there are actually three based on Porter's idea. Porter's thoughts was three. The first one is cost leadership. He wants the model talks about being the lowest cost producer in that industry. So that's a parameter on its own. And the second is differentiation, having a different product that provides special niche and value to the to the populace or to the market or to a particular market. So cost leadership is one, differentiation is one. Then focus talks about targeting a particular market segment, focusing on either the cost or differentiation. So focus is on its own, but you have to focus based on the reduction of cost or differentiating the product for that specific market. So don't see it as focus as a subset of the first two. See it as a standalone element, but has two areas that it could diversify to. So cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. But the focus could be focused on cost leadership or it could be focused on differentiation, any of the two. Focus is standalone. So it's good you get clarity because I don't think this model has been tested in the 22 versions of the case study paper. So it could come. So the first thing to remember is cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. Once you remember these three components, elements, you'll be able to provide write-ups and your thoughts on that case scenario. So in answering your question succinctly, there are three, not two, but the focus is splitted into those two splinter units of the first and the second. Does that resonate with you?
Yes, sir, it does resonate. I just
Okay.
want to put this in perspective now.
Mm, mm,
Looking at a scenario, is it possible for, if we are given a scenario, that we
mm.
will be uh, relating it more on cost leadership and lesser of differentiation, or if we are given a scenario, we must relate it with all the parameters, all the elements of Porter's generic forces. That's a three, or we can pick the one that relates with the scenario, basically.
Okay, fantastic question. So when a scenario is provided, you have to relate the three elements principally with that scenario. You can't isolate anyone. So you have to relate the three because that's what Porter's generic model or his strategy is all about. So in that scenario, once they say use Porter's generic model to describe the case scenario or to speak to that requirement, you must talk about cost leadership, you must talk about differentiation, and you must talk about focus. So those tripartite, those triple factors must be incorporated into your discussion and your conversation in analyzing the case. So three of them must follow in discussing. So you can't isolate anyone to say, okay, let me use cost leadership to discuss, or decide to use differentiation or focus. No, you have to use the three, because the scenario the examiner will be provided must align with the three, because those are the three components of that model. Good question. I hope it was clear.
Yeah, it's clear, sir.
Okay.
Now, lastly,
Yes,
I
please.
just
Feel
want
free.
to get this now. In a scenario where we now have more like cost leadership is advantageous to the business, and differentiation is more like is not really speaking for the uh, they are not really getting benefits for what they are trying to differentiate themselves of. So does it mean we'll need to look at pros and cons of the strategy and now discuss it basically?
Okay, good question also. A follow-up to the other two you've asked. They are good questions. So in applying the model to a case scenario, don't forget you have 8 boxes. 8 boxes. So what you do is, with 8 boxes, when a model is presented, I don't think we've treated any example with the model. So in aligning those 3 elements with the 8 boxes, the first thing is to use the case scenario to discuss your data and information, and that does not mean applying the model. So the first box talks about data and information. So your superior achievement is to pick 4 superior points. So for data and information, the case scenario has plethora of discussions to pick from. So you don't need to apply the model from the first box. Then the second box that deals with professional tools is where you bring in the model. So in the professional tools section, you need to describe what Porter's generic strategy is. If the examiner says use Porter's generic strategy, you need to describe cost leadership, you need to describe differentiation, and describe focus. 4 points to get superior achievement. Then when it comes to number 3, speaking to your analytical skills, you need to align or analyze the case scenario with this model. So the case scenario should graphically talk about cost leadership, align it to reducing cost in that industry. The cost leadership element could practically be used to reduce cost in the case scenario. That's practically the value you are bringing in the exam. Secondly, another dimension is the differentiation. Differentiation strategy could be carving a niche for a product and making that product premium, making the brand so strong that a particular audience don't care the price. It's another way. It's another substitute to cost leadership. Not really complementary, but it's a substitute. So you're giving the board, you're advising the board or management. You're saying they could stick to cost leadership, they could stick to differentiation, they could stick to focus, but you're giving them those 3 options based on the model to choose. Remember, you're an advisor in the case study scenario. Then after the differentiation, you could say they could focus on any of these 2. So focus is that they are providing a particular providing the products and services to a particular demography or population, and they could be cost leadership focused and differentiation focus. So you need to explain the 3 in line with the case and let the board or your audience, your client, decide. So in answering your question succinctly, that follow-up question, please discuss 3 of them in the analytical box, which is the 3rd box. Then the 4th box talks about challenges and considerations. So based on the case, you need to talk about challenges. You don't need to bring in the model. So the model principally rests on box 2 and box 3. Professional tools, which is a must, and analytical skills. Then any challenge the model may have in line with the case, you could bring it in box 4, challenges and consideration. Then ethical issues, I don't think the model has any place in ethical issues. That has to do with the case. Then for risk assessment, you could look at risks from the cost leadership aspect, differentiating the product aspect, the focus aspect. You could talk about risk assessment. Then your conclusion and recommendation, your 8 boxes. So those 8 boxes The second and the third resonate practically with what you talk about with this model or any of the models. And in talking about any of the models, you must use 3 of them and let the board decide. Your own is not to decide. In your conclusion and recommendation, you could recommend and say, okay, with the case you are seeing, the company could focus on, you are advising them to choose the focus area or stick to differentiation or stick to cost leadership, whichever it is that the case resonates with or comes to your mind. You could as well focus on that. I hope I provided some clarity to your question. Oh, fantastic. Fantastic, fantastic. Good to hear. I love these questions. Good ones. Good ones. Okay, any other one? Because these questions are practical, and any model that comes in the exams, you need to use basically what AA is asking to be able to answer it practically. One of the challenges when Ansoff matrix was provided, I think 2-3 diets ago, was one of my very good students had no idea, and he failed that diet, and it pained me. And that's why I tell students, please have an idea of the models. So please pay attention, especially to those models that are not tested yet, so that you're not taking unawares or taking off balance. If you are blank, you don't know the elements or the components of that model, then how do you apply it? So these questions A is asking on a very salient model like the Porter's generic strategies that has not been tested. It's good to pay attention to that. So as we go through the next models, take notes, and if you have questions like AA does very lavishly, please ask your questions without any fear of reprimand. Okay, thank you for that, AA, once again. So let's look at the Porter's diamond model, which is the 5th model. If you have any question, please raise your hand. Feel free to interject very freely. So let's look at the 5th model, Porter's diamond model. The purpose of the Porter's diamond model is to analyze the competitive advantage of nations or regions in specific industries. And it focuses on key determinants that influence a company's ability to compete. So nations or regions in specific industries are what Porter's diamond talks about. Nations and regions. So when you hear Porter's diamond model, what should come to your mind first is nations and regions and how they influence industries. Because nations, governments, economies are platforms where businesses are bettered and nurtured. So if a region or a nation is not peaceful or is not economically viable, then businesses will not thrive. And that's the premise with which Porter Diamond built this model. So there are 4 determinants on a company's ability to compete. And the 4 determinants speaks to number 1, factor conditions. Factor conditions refer to the nation's position in factors of production. In economics, those days in school, secondary school, they taught us on the 4 factors of production. And it graphically resonates here, talking about skilled labor, infrastructure, natural resources. It's just put in another way, but land, labor, capital, blah, 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 they taught us in economics. It's almost the same thing, just a change of synonyms. So the factor conditions refers to the position in factors of production that affect that business space. And the importance is that high quality factors can lead to competitive advantage. There are some nations where businessmen go to and they thrive easily. And when they come to Africa, it's hard to thrive. Why? Because these factor conditions are not the same in both nations or those 2 nations. You could go to a developed country or developed country and thrive, do well in business, but come to a developing country or underdeveloped country and you crash. Why? Because of factor conditions. So take note of that. And it's important because high quality factors can lead to competitive advantages. And the next one is, or the next point or the component is based on this Potter Diamonds model is demand condition. The nature of the home or the country's demand for the industry's products or services. So that demand factor is there. And the importance of the demand factor talks about sophisticated and demanding consumers' drive. We're talking about innovation and quality put into those products. So the demand is determined by the consumers and what the producers are willing to provide. Also relating or related and supporting industries, talking about the presence of suppliers, related industries that can foster competition and innovation, influence this same demand for the industry's products or services. So the importance is that strong suppliers and supporting industries contribute to competitive advantage. So the factor condition, demand condition are the two components we just looked at. And the third one is the firm's strategy, structure, and rivalry. The firm's strategy, its structure, and the rivalry. So the conditions governing how companies are created, organized, and managed, along with the nature of domestic rivalry, competition among those that provide almost the same substitute or the kind of products, is also a condition or a component that must be taken into cognizance by businesses that provide goods and services in that country or that region. So the firm's strategy, its structure, and the way it can compete in that space is very important, because the intense competition in the home market drives firms to innovate, improve, see how to carve a niche, see how to address issues of losing market share, losing sales and revenue. So that intense competition is good because it drives innovation and improvement. So this model could be applied for evaluating the competitiveness of a nation or region in specific industry. And we must understand that various factors interact to influence industry success, and identifying areas for improvement, for investment, and other areas is key to putting this Potter's Diamond model to practice. So in brief summary, what are we saying on Potter's Diamond model? Let me summarize the thoughts on what we just looked at. Potter's Diamond simply explains why certain industries in particular countries are competitive, either locally or internationally. So based on the four determinants or the main determinants we looked at: factor conditions, demand conditions, related or supporting industries, and the firm's strategy, structure, and rivalry. So those are the four determinants. You must have that memorized. I didn't say you should cram it, but just memorize those determinants: factor conditions, demand conditions, related and supporting industries, and the last one is the firm strategy, structure, and rivalry. So two additional elements maybe government and chance also influence competitiveness, but the government and chance are not main determinants. They are just maybe additional determinants or elements. So in using those four determinants, an example could be used, like in Nigeria, let's use the cement industry. So for factor conditions in the cement industry, talking about the four elements under factor conditions, we're looking at maybe abundant limestone and cheap labor to support cement industry. So the factors of production resonate here under factor condition. In one of the states, I think Ajaokuta, will have abundant limestone and cheap labor, and that will support cement production. So the factor conditions in that cement industry could resonate with this example. The second one is demand condition. The growing urban population drives high local demand for cement, the rural-urban migration or the rural-urban shift of the population. A lot of people want to build their house in city, so the demand condition for cement will rise because of this massive exodus of people from the rural areas to urban areas, and that would drive high local demand for cement. And the third determinant is relating or related and supporting industries. Local suppliers of machinery and transport services will support the cement sector because they produce machines for building or grinding those cements, forming them into blocks. And transport services that support those industries will also move those blocks to where people are building their houses, and those are related and supporting industries. And finally, talking about the firm's strategy, structure, and rivalry, companies like Dangote, Lafarge Cement, Boas Cement, their aggressiveness, driving efficiency, innovation is practically what we could look at in this fourth determinant. Then the two others we talk about, government and chance. The policies on infrastructure development could boost demand. So policies around government making the economy conducive for businesses to thrive could provide infrastructure to develop and boost demand. And the chance talks about global commodity price fluctuations can also affect competitiveness. So in summary, Nigeria's cement industry thrives internationally because all diamond determinants based on what we've seen align to create competitive advantage. Very key. So that's just a brief example I could resonate with the model we just looked at. All right, any question? This model has not also been tested in any of the diets, so you need to take note of it so that you can read it and understand it. Any question on this third model? On this, I said third model, on the sixth model, I beg your pardon. Any question? Contribution or thoughts generally, please share freely. Any question?
Hello, sir.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
This is just a thought. I'm just trying to look at Porter generally.
Yes.
It's looking like, as we speak now, we've created 4 models under Porter. And I'm trying to, Porter, trying to understand that which one, differentiate which one from which, so that one will not mix up one for another. So I'm trying to see, is there a way? I know you will say practice.
Exactly.
But I'm just trying. I'm just trying to see how one can just get it easily and easy differentiation of all those models from the 5 forces down to this diamond model now.
Exactly. Good question. Actually, when I was writing the paper to this problem was there in trying to differentiate which model is this, because under exam conditions, you can mix them up and all that. So you've actually answered the question. There's no shortcut, actually. You have to put in the grind and practice with it. So the more you practice, if you say you want to use shortcut of cramming, once the scenario changes in the exam hall, you get confused. That's where the problem with cramming is. But if you memorize, practice with it, with scenarios, you'll be able to catch it. You just catch the grasp. So Michael Porter came up with a lot of models that we use today. Fantastic businessman and fantastic philosopher. Very wonderful guy. Blessed memory. So I think succinctly, there's no shortcut. The only thing is, if you practice with it frequently with other models, I would suggest you also use AI You have Meta AI on your WhatsApp. You can use Meta AI to just play with it. Just tell Meta AI to give you, with any of these models, maybe Porter 5 forces, Porter generic strategies, Porter value chain, any of this model that Porter has come up with and we're looking at in this course. You can use it with Meta AI to just provide you with case studies. And as you are reading, you don't need to maybe practice or write down. You see that it resonates with you and you just catch, oh, these are the differences, these are the components, and it will help. So I think our advice in that area, use Meta AI. If you maybe don't have access to ChatGPT or any other AI, Meta AI is on WhatsApp and it's on your phone. So you can use that to navigate and just tell it to give you case studies, and you see how those components align practically with the case studies, and you'll see that they stick. If you just lie down, press your phone, you see it would give you powerful suggestions to help drive those points home. So thank you for the thought. I know it's a thought.
Right.
It's good we share those thoughts. They are very good. Any other thought? Please share thoughts. It mustn't be any question. Excuse me. These models can be challenging under exam conditions. So it's good you are well prepared. So once they present a model, you just know, okay, these are the main determinants. You'll be able to you'll be able to provide context and your thoughts in alignment to the case. So it's good. So please play with the AI very well. It will help you. All right. Thank you for that thought, AA. Fantastic one. Okay, let's run to the next model. And the model is benchmarking. So this is good. It's not, excuse me. Benchmarking was not Porter's idea. So we are, I think, gradually done with everything Porter came up with. So let's look at benchmarking now. In this, sorry, excuse me. Excuse me. Let's look at benchmarking. Thank you so much. Thank you. I think I am a bit dehydrated. I'll just take a bit of water, pardon me. Okay. Thank you for that. So let's look at benchmarking. And benchmarking has been tested before. I think one of the past papers we'll be looking at is a question on benchmarking that NA personally requested for us to look at that question. So it's part of our question bank. We'll be looking at the tested benchmarking and capital restructuring very practically, that requirement 1 and 2. Okay, so benchmarking, the purpose is to compare a company's or a firm's performance to industry best fits or best practices from other companies to identify areas of improvement. So you have a model and you have companies that have gone ahead. So you could benchmark your practices, your operations, and your activities to that company so that you can have a role model you're looking up to and goals and strategies, objectives to help drive your performance. So benchmarking is good for companies, and that's the purpose, to enhance the performance metrics of the company. So there are types of benchmarking. We have internal benchmarking, comparing performance metrics within the same organization between departments. So if finance is doing well, you could benchmark and say, sales, finance is doing well. Why are you not doing well? Look at how sales, finance is operating. Or you could say IT is doing well. Why is customer care not replicating IT's results? So benchmarking internally could reflect or provide yardsticks for internal departments as a benchmark. And that's why some organizations do end of the year award to particular units so that others could sit up and do well based on internal successes within those units. We also have competitive benchmarking, comparing against direct competitors to assess relative performance. So you have competitors, when you look at their results, you benchmark with that to say, no, if they did this kind of result, let's say sales in billions in a particular year, let's benchmark it and say, this is our target. Let's beat them or let's do as they did. So comparing direct competitor results of direct competitors to assess relative performance is good and is termed competitive benchmarking. The next one is functional benchmarking. You're comparing with organizations in different industries that perform similar functions with yours. So the functions that are similar to yours in other organizations could be benchmarked so that you can attain to that standard. Very key. Then the next one is generic benchmarking, comparing processes, systems, and functions that are similar across industries to yours. So, internal, competitive, functional, generic are types of benchmarking organizations could mimic to help them drive performance. The aim is actually to drive performance and do better, improve. That's essentially what benchmarking is all about. And the steps in benchmarking speaks to identification. What are you benchmarking on? So select either specific process, functions, or metrics to evaluate. So identification is key. Then select benchmarking partners. That is, identify organizations, identify industries to compare with, not for competition, but to drive you to do better. And gather data, collect performance data through surveys, interviews, public records, financial statements, and use them as a yardstick to drive your own performance. After that collection of data, you need to analyze the data, identify gaps. Where are the areas you're not meeting up with your either budgets or your forecasts? So between your performance and that of the benchmarked organization, you can analyze the data to do better, then implement the changes, develop strategies to close those performance gaps based on what you've benchmarked as an organization. And the next step is to monitor your progress, continually track progress and performance to ensure improvements are sustained. So the benefits include identifying best practices and performance gaps, and also drive continuous progress and improvement and enhance competitiveness and efficiency as a business. These are the essence of benchmarking very, very practically. So it's not competition, it's just being better than who you are yesterday. And as a business could do that. There's a book by Jim Collins, From Good to Great. And benchmarking was something very good Jim Collins talked about in that book. You may need to read the book, From Good to Great. When I was in one company, the CEO shared it with all top management staff just to drive performance in his business. Good to Great. Fantastic book by Jim Collins. So please, if you have the time, please read the book. It will help drive some points on benchmarking. All right. So let's look at an example on what we've talked about. The benchmarking, like we said, is the process of comparing an organization's processes, performance, or practices against best-in-class companies to identify areas of improvement. So an example, let's use the banking sector in Nigeria, for example. I would like to use GT Bank. GT Bank studies maybe service delivery models of leading global banks and implements, let's say, efficient digital banking solutions. You see that this improves customer experience and operational efficiency compared to competitors. So the key takeaway is that as a business and even as individuals, look at the best, learn from them, and do better. Simple. That's what benchmarking is all about. Look at the best, learn from them, and do better. I love Jim Rohn of Blessed Memory. He's a very good philosopher and motivational speaker. I listened to his records. He used to say something: if you want to be happy, study happiness. You say, if you want to be rich, study riches. If you want to be wealthy, study wealth. And do what you study. And you find out you begin to attract what you are doing. So benchmarking is something like that. So benchmark your performance as a company, as a product, as a person to those who have succeeded in that space. Learn, look at the best, learn from them, and do better. Very simple. So benchmarking is almost the same, and I think those examples are to drive the point home. All right. So any questions on benchmarking? Briefly, we just looked at that. Any questions? Any thoughts on benchmarking? Okay. So let's look at one more model before we go on break.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, please go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. Is there a kind of a platform where one can get, as a business advisor, we are to advise companies, and in terms of having competitive benchmarking, um, we are low in information data in Nigeria here. So is there a platform that one can get information as regards maybe SMEs performance in terms of sales, so that one can use it as a kind of a competitive benchmarking for business advisory? I don't know if there is anything like that, even if not in Nigeria, even if it's outside.
Good question. Good question. So, like you said earlier, we have a drought of data um, platforms that will give us data, especially for Nigerian businesses. But I think with the coming of AI could reference you or direct you to areas, reference and provide sites. So, for example, like ChatGPT now, you can just type on the prompt and tell it SMEs and companies in this space or in this industry. Tell it with reference to websites. It could direct you to websites, blogs, articles where you could read on that. So I'll suggest you leverage AI, because if you ask for maybe sites or areas to look for this data, you may not get. But ChatGPT will go search it out for you, even in Nigeria. So try that prompt. Yeah, thank you. I see your thumbs up. So try that prompt and just put your prompt there and tell it to link you to website, not just give you information that it knows. Tell it to link you to website so that you could click those links, and it will help you with data for you to analyze and help move forward. I could see your thumbs up, so I believe you got that practically. So leverage AI. AI has come to stay. So in the words of the CEO of Microsoft, he said, AI has come to make us do much with less. And that's very true. So let's look at section 8 before we go on break. Section 8 talks about Boston Consulting Group, another model that has not been tested so far. BCG matrix. All right, so what's the purpose of the BCG matrix? BCG matrix. The purpose and aim of the BCG matrix is to analyze a company's product portfolio. So if a company has a lot of products, and to make strategic decisions about allocating resource to those products. And that's important because the BCG matrix helps you manage those product lines very effectively, make strategic decisions about which ones to concentrate that provide maybe maximum contribution to the business, and which ones to reduce concentration and resource allocation, and also to enhance the ones that are producing, or to redevelop, redesign, rejuvenate the ones that are not. So BCG matrix is a good matrix, and the components talk about looking at products at levels with some specific names. So for example, the first component is stars. There are products that gives you that high market share, enhances high market growth. So those products are stars. So what you do to such products, it's you require investment in that product to maintain growth. So a product that is doing very well, out of maybe 4 of your products, is a star, and the star's results from time to time or over time is high market share. It has a high market share, high market growth rate. So you need to maintain that growth, make it sustainable. And an example talking about new tech products in a growing market could be the stars in that tech company. So you need to invest more in that product so it could stay afloat, providing the market share and the market growth. The next component is cash cows. Cash cows have high market share but low market growth. So cash cows generate steady cash flow and you don't need to invest on them because they have low growth rate. So you just maintain that market share, maintenance, not reinvestment, maintenance of the market share of that product is very important. That's why it's called cash cow, because it provides steady cash flow with little investment. So such products, you just maintain it and don't drop. Don't drop. So for example, established product in a matured market. The market has matured, is saturated, so consistency demand is coming for those products. You just keep getting cash, and such are cash cows. The next one is question marks or are question marks, products that are question marks. They are also known as problem children or problem child. Gives you low market share but high market growth rate potential. So those are question marks. And it requires significant resources to increase their market share because they are presently generating low market share. So you need to inject significant resources to increase the market share of that product. And an example is maybe new products with potential but low adoption and acceptance in the market. It's an example of a problem child or a question mark. And finally, we have dogs. Dogs have low market share and low market growth rate. So they neither generate significant cash or require much investment. So what an example of dogs are outdated product with little market relevance, but you don't want to kill the product or take it off the market. Maybe they are providing a particular population or demography some service, some required service, and you may not want to take them off, but they are of little relevance to the markets. Those are the dogs. So we have 4 of those BCG matrix synonyms or components that could help you understand the viability of products in the market. So there are steps in using the BCG model. Identify business units or the products, then list under those identification, you need to list all products or business units for analysis. So identification first, then you evaluate the market growth rate of those products to categorize them based on those components we spoke about. Evaluate the market growth rate and assess the growth potential of the market for each of those products. Then you assess the relative market share. Those are the steps in using this model. And you measure each product's market share compared to its largest competitor. And you also position it in the matrix. Place each product in the appropriate quadrant of the BCG matrix so you could understand it better. And there's strategic recommendations to develop the strategies based on the product's positioning. For example, you invest in stars or star products and divest in dog products. And the benefit of doing this is it provides a clear visual representation of the product's performance, and it aids in strategic planning, decision making, and resource allocation. It helps prioritize investments based on the product's potential. So BCG matrix is good, and it helps businesses allocate resources by categorizing the products, like we said, into stars, cash cows, question marks, and dogs based on market growth and market share. So let's use an example before we go on break. So for example, the Nigerian fast-moving consumer goods, which is known as FMCG market. Let's use Nestle. Nestle Nigeria as a product or as a company to study. If you look at their product line, you could say Milo is a star. You could say Milo is a star. Milo is the likes, we call it the competitor to Bonvita. So you see that in market share, Milo has high market share and also high growth because it's popular among children. And you see sport promos and all that, they use Milo. So Milo is a star, in my opinion. And also in that product line of Nestle, a cash cow could be Maggi cubes, seasoning, Maggi cubes. It has high market share, but maybe low growth rate because it's dominant, but it has a matured market. So it brings cash flow. So Maggi cube is a cash cow. Then for question mark, maybe the plant-based drinks that Nestle provides. They may have low market share but high growth potential. Like they came up with some chocolate drinks lately, and they had low market share compared to the Milo itself, but they had a high growth rate, emerging health conscious segments for those products. So then the last one is dogs. The dog product in Nestle talks about the less popular niche snacks. There are some snacks I think they came about sometimes and I don't even see them in the market again. They have low share, and also low growth rate. So those are dogs in the Nestle. So looking at, in summary, this model, you could see stars as investment, or stars need investment, and cash cows fund the business. Question marks need decision making, and dogs may be divested or killed, something like that. So that speaks to the model practically and how to use it or apply it under exam condition. Okay, so any questions? That will be the end of that short model. Any question to that?